million, but that's pale in comparison to the federal government and the Native Americans. They lose trillions of dollars due to outdated fee schedules due to the lack of real estate appraisers. And Anthony was refreshing to meet because probably I've only encountered 3 minorities on an appraisal board across the country, and I say black folks. So right now he would be one, and then there's another one that I'm aware of in Georgia. And so he is very strong in the field. He listens. He doesn't have an appraisal background per se, but he has a strong real estate background. And the thing in appraising is everybody's solving appraising issues but appraisers, and nobody's willing to listen. He's willing to listen. I met him last year at the Aero Conference in Savannah, and he represents DC proudly. I think the first thing he told me was 3rd generation original DC. I think 7th ward. I don't remember all the particulars, but it's refreshing. The industry has a total lack of leadership across the board, and there's nobody advocating for black appraisers or black people in the space. So you have these appraisal diversity initiatives, but at the head of the initiatives are all of the lenders that have been brought under sanctions from the Justice Department. And then you have the appraisal arm of the Appraisal Diversity Initiative, who their CEO just recently wrote 3 articles saying that bias in appraising has been sensationalized. So it's somewhat confusing if you're the head of diversity, but then it's sensationalized, and then everybody wonders why there's nothing getting done. So I serve on the OCC Project 2 Reach committee, and hopefully we can start to move the needle a little bit. But we also have, our solution is we have the first ever National Appraisal Apprenticeship Program certified through the U.S. Department of Labor, and we would love to be able to implement that here in DC to help along with the process, because there's a lack of appraisers in county, city, state, and federal, and you all could be the catalyst of change across the country, because every federal agency has an appraisal department and are in need of real estate appraisers.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I appreciate it with respect to the appraisals. I often come across folks who do appraisals and generally find 2 categories: folks who believe that there's not a problem, and folks who believe there is a problem, but that is somebody else's problem to fix. I've been in this category that you mentioned, when I have an appraisal done for a home, I would take down stuff that indicates that there's a black family that lives there. Ask my white neighbors to come by during the appraisal, just so the appraiser knows that white folks live in the neighborhood. And this doesn't surprise most people of color. But unfortunately, it's still one of those things that a lot of people think happens. But to one of your testimony, it has an economic impact. It has a severe economic impact. And if we don't grapple with it, even though it's difficult, if we don't grapple with it, we don't move forward. People not who come to a specific conclusion, but who are willing to grapple with this and other difficult issues. What I take from your testimony is that you believe that Mr. Bolling will grapple with difficult issues, but also will look more broadly into the issue of diversity in our appraisal profession. You mentioned not just race, but age is something. Based on your experience, what should we be doing in the District of Columbia or elsewhere to diversify appraisers?
So the biggest thing in bias is the appraisal model is broken. It hasn't been updated in 40 years. So if you were to refinance your house today, look at the bottom of the appraisal form, it's dated 2005. So Apple is on the 16th iteration of the iPhone. So a lot of the appraising is subjective. And now with technology, you are able to utilize database, evidence-based data-driven analysis, taking the subjectivity out of the appraisal. It's almost like parenting. When I grew up, you did it because your parents said so. Now you got to talk to your kids. You got to work. It don't matter who pays the bills. You still got to have the conversation and be objective and open. So they just came out with the reconsideration value. It doesn't cure everything, but it gives the appraiser an opportunity to get it right and to look at some sales that may have not been available when they first did the appraisal. So again, it's about updating the whole model. That won't eliminate the bias, but it will go a long way to mitigate it.
I appreciate that. And you mentioned an apprenticeship program for potential future appraisers. Can you say a little bit more about that?
So we have the first ever National Appraisal Apprenticeship Program through the Department of Labor, and it's a 2-year program where we help to try to mitigate some of the challenges or barriers to entry into the field. And the biggest barrier to entry is people not being able to work for free for 2 years after they get the courses. So we're able to, through grants and subsidies, help to assist and be able to pay them while they learn. So you have formal education and informal education. After you get your hours in, you still have to go through the iterations and the practice. And there's no perfect appraisal, but you have to start somewhere. So if folks are able to start getting those hours and getting better in the process, it goes a long way to opening up the field. So we've been working with some of the 1890 land grant colleges. There's so many different levels of appraising. You have the tax assessor's office, you have the city office, the state right away. Biden-Harris administration has put out billions of dollars in infrastructure for highways, bridges, fiber optics. Those will require right away. Unfortunately, minorities make up 1% of the appraisers, and 90% of that 1% only does residential. So there's a whole world of opportunities out there. U.S. Forest Service and the Department of Interior. A lot of those going across those lands because that's what will be developed. And those two agencies manage over 400 million acres of real estate. So I was at Fish and Wildlife Refuge last night. There's water rights, conservation easements, all types of opportunity in the value space that people don't even know exist. So we like to try to bring exposure and then after that expansion.
The University of the District of Columbia is a land grant institution. So if Mr. Bolling is confirmed, he calls you for help and advice getting an apprenticeship program started at our land grant institution. You can help him.
Well, he called me today and I'm here, so I think that's pretty evident.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you for being here. Public testimony is incredibly helpful for the work that we have to do with our nominees. So thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.